Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into Washington, D.C. You probably think of it as this powerhouse of American wealth and influence, right? But there's this massive contradiction hiding right under the surface. It's a story of incredible economic division. So yeah, let's get right into it.
And boom, right out of the gate, here's the central puzzle. On one side, D.C. has the highest GDP per person in the entire United States. I mean, it's an absolute economic engine. But then you flip the coin, and it has worse income inequality than any single state. So how is that even possible? How can one place be the richest and the most divided at the exact same time?
It really is like a tale of two different cities, all crammed into just 68 square miles. So let's take a closer look at both sides of this economic coin, because we really need to understand just how deep this divide actually runs.
Okay, so to get the wealthy side of the story, you just have to follow the money, right? DC has one of the highest median household incomes in the country. And why is that? Well, because it's a total magnet for big money jobs, government, law, all those contracting gigs. This is the powerful, prosperous DC that probably pops into your head.
But this is where that whole picture just completely falls apart. Just look at this. We're comparing poverty rates across the city's different wards. In the richest parts of town, the poverty rate is tiny, almost non-existent. But then, you go just a few miles away to the poorest wards, and boom, it shoots up to over 25%. I mean, that's not just a gap, that's a canyon.
So you gotta ask, how is this even happening? Is this just what you'd expect from a big capital city? Or is there something else, something deeper, something structural going on here? Well, let's find out.
Okay, so the answer here isn't just about dollars and cents. It's really about power. It's about who's in control. And in this next part, we're going to uncover the one missing piece that honestly makes this whole puzzle make sense.
The key to this whole thing boils down to these two words, fiscal autonomy. Now, it sounds complicated, but it's actually a pretty simple and really powerful idea. All it means is the power for a local government to control its own money and its own laws for its own people, without somebody from the outside meddling in their business.
And here it is, the big reveal. Washington, D.C. doesn't have it. Simple as that. The capital of one of the world's most famous democracies doesn't have full control over its own affairs. The people who actually live there don't get the final say on their own local community.
Okay, so what does that actually mean? How does this lack of control work in the real world? Let's connect the dots here, from this weird political setup to that massive inequality we were just talking about.
All right, so here's how it goes down. DC elects a mayor and a city council, just like any other city. They put together a budget for their residents, but then, and this is the wild part, they have to send that budget over to the US Congress for approval, and Congress can literally change it, block parts of it, whatever they want. They can interfere with local DC decisions on everything from schools to potholes.
And the fallout from this? It's huge. Imagine trying to fund social programs to, help close that wealth gap. Well, that funding can get stuck or even killed because of national politics that have nothing to do with D.C. And get this, D.C. isn't allowed to tax the income of the hundreds of thousands of people who commute in from Maryland and Virginia to work there. That's a massive source of money that basically every other major city gets to use. It's a systemic problem that makes it almost impossible to plan for the long term and tackle inequality.
So let's just pull back for a second. This is way bigger than just some local budget fight. What we're talking about here really makes you think about the whole idea of democracy, especially when it's happening right in the nation's capital. And that brings us to the real takeaway here, the bottom line. DC's shocking inequality isn't just some random economic problem. No, it is a direct consequence of a political system that denies its citizens a fundamental right that every other American has, the right to govern themselves.
So, that leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. This isn't really about budgets and taxes at the end of the day. It's about fairness. It's about representation. What does it say about a democracy when the people living right in its heart, in its own capital, don't actually have the final word on their own community's destiny?